Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to explore The Wooden Boy, one of the most disturbing animated short films that made a powerful impact on the horror scene at the end of 2022, carries a title as simple as it is unsettling: The Wooden Boy. This short film is not the product of a traditional animation studio or a massive production team. It comes directly from the twisted, brilliant, and highly original mind of Meat Canyon, an animator and YouTuber who has gained fame for his ability to turn the innocence of classics into nightmares that seem to emerge from the darkest corners of the human mind. His style combines black humor, grotesque imagery, and horror in a way that leaves the viewer caught between fascination and revulsion. In The Wooden Boy, Meat Canyon presents a radically different vision of the well-known story of Pinocchio. Forget the mischievous, dreamy puppet we all remember, the one who wished to become a real boy. Here, the puppet comes to life with a far more sinister purpose: to devour, destroy, and dominate, becoming a ruthless creature that even threatens its own creator, Geppetto. At first glance, it might seem like a dark fan art or a macabre experiment, but if we look closely, every scene is packed with details, symbols, and references suggesting a hidden mythology behind this monstrous Pinocchio. That's why, in this video, we're going to dive deep into The Wooden Boy, analyzing every layer of the story. First, we'll go through the plot step by step, unraveling Pinocchio's evolution from the moment he awakens. Then, we'll explore the true background of this demonic version, the scrolls, the dark rituals, and the motivation that led Geppetto to make such atrocious decisions. Afterward, we'll discuss the creature's physical appearance, its twisted psychology, and its almost animalistic behavior. Finally, we'll uncover Meat Canyon's inspirations and how every visual and narrative element contributes to the overwhelming sense of horror that the short film manages to convey. The story begins with an eerie, almost supernatural atmosphere. Pinocchio, carved from wood with exaggerated proportions, awakens sobbing. His large, expressive eyes reflect a mixture of curiosity and fear. Through tears, he asks Geppetto if he resembles a real boy. The carpenter, confused, full of doubt and guilt, wonders what he did wrong during the creation process. The tension rises when, suddenly, a violent knock shakes the house's door. Geppetto cautiously approaches to investigate, while the puppet, with a trembling, almost childlike voice, confesses that he is scared. At that moment, his nose begins to grow grotesquely, a detail reminiscent of the classic story, but with a macabre and symbolic twist. The stranger knocking on the door expects neither invitation nor courtesy. He barges in, screaming and accusing Geppetto of hiding his child. Overcome with rage, he calls him sick and threatens him with violence if he doesn't deliver what he seeks. He pushes, insults, and corners him. But at that exact moment, a disturbing sound emerges from behind the carpenter. Pinocchio lunges with animalistic ferocity. His strings, once mere tools of manipulation, transform into lethal tentacles that trap the intruder. With chilling brutality, he devours him while Geppetto watches, paralyzed by terror. Desperate, Geppetto runs through the house with a candle in one hand and a knife in the other, trying to escape the monster he himself created. From his perspective, he witnesses Pinocchio open his mouth unnaturally wide to swallow his victim whole in a single bite. In a desperate attempt at survival, he cuts one of the strings holding the creature. Pinocchio staggers for a moment, but soon recovers, whispering in a distorted, macabre voice that he wants a hug. Meanwhile, his nose continues to grow uncontrollably, a grotesque reminder of the dark magic that brought him to life. In the midst of his escape, Geppetto discovers ancient scrolls and blood-stained manuscripts on a table. The dark symbols and alchemical phrases reveal forbidden knowledge. Pinocchio was meant to be born as a real boy, But a chilling fragment establishes a condition no one had mentioned before. To receive the fairy's wish, you must first make a sacrifice. Geppetto, with tears and a trembling voice, confesses that he had already fulfilled that part of the deal, revealing a dark secret that changes the entire story. In a moment of absolute horror, the creature breaks down the door and lunges at Geppetto, knocking him down and dragging him toward its tooth-filled mouth. From the carpenter's point of view, we see the interior of the puppet, a pulsating, organic stomach contradicting the hardness of the wood, showing that the life it now holds is monstrous and unnatural. The scene is intense, disturbing, and visually striking, a hallmark of Meat Canyon's style. The climax of the short film leaves us with an image that combines fascination and repulsion. Pinocchio, now moving more naturally, observes his reflection in a mirror. He discovers that one of his eyes is no longer made of wood, but human blue and capable of blinking, a sign that the transformation is complete, but in a way no one would have wished for. The scene closes with an unsettling silence, leaving the viewer with the feeling of having witnessed something profoundly disturbing. But the truly unsettling aspect is not just in the surface plot. It's in what Meat Canyon hints at between the lines. The scrolls, the forbidden magic, and Geppetto's confession lead us to a terrifying conclusion. The carpenter did not simply create a puppet. He sacrificed a real child, likely the intruder's son, as part of a dark ritual. The fairy, far from benevolent, appears as a demonic entity that grants life in exchange for the death of an innocent. Thus, the story is not merely a visual horror tale. It is a commentary on the price of ambition, obsession, and unchecked curiosity. The end result is a living Pinocchio, but deformed in body and soul. Instead of becoming the ideal son Geppetto longed for, the magic delivers a devouring monster, a cruel reminder that manipulating forces beyond our understanding always comes at a cost. The most unsettling and fascinating aspect of the ancient scrolls that appear in The Wooden Boy is something that almost goes unnoticed at first glance. They never specify exactly how many sacrifices are required for the fairy to fulfill her promise and transform Pinocchio into a real flesh and blood boy. This absence of information is not an oversight. It is the key to understanding the puppet's violent and unrestrained behavior. Pinocchio is alive, yes, but still incomplete. To achieve full humanity, he needs to absorb lives, victim after victim, until he approaches the boy he once dreamed of being. This turns the story into something far more disturbing than a simple inversion of the fable. We are witnessing a gradual process of corruption and metamorphosis that blends magic, sacrifice, and horror. If we carefully analyze the development of the short film, we can see how the creature progresses, step by step, toward this dark goal. The first sacrifice, carried out by Geppetto, the child of the man who later appears demanding his son, granted him the spark of life. Without that initial act, Pinocchio would never have come into existence. But the spark of life is not enough. By devouring the intruder, the puppet begins to mutate. His body grows, his texture takes on a more organic appearance, and his traditional strings transform into tentacles that function as additional limbs, ready to attack and hold his prey. Finally, after feeding on Geppetto, the puppet reaches an even higher level of mobility and strength. His arms and legs become muscular, and his eyes gradually start transforming into human ones. Each consumed victim not only nourishes his body, but also brings Pinocchio one step closer to his complete metamorphosis. The most chilling aspect of this concept is the idea that the ritual might never be fully completed. Even if the puppet acquires human traits, his gigantic size and deformed proportions could persist, turning him into a humanoid abomination, a being trapped between humanity and monstrosity, unable to belong to any world. This tension between the familiar and the grotesque generates a terror that is not only seen, but also deeply felt. The appearance of this version of Pinocchio is unforgettable and profoundly disturbing. It bears no resemblance to the Disney childlike version or Guillermo del Toro's darker interpretation. He is a humanoid puppet of exaggerated dimensions, completely wooden, with vaguely childlike proportions. His clothing combines traditional elements: overalls or shorts with a white shirt, wooden clogs in a Swedish style, white gloves, and a small cap atop his head, creating a disturbing contrast between apparent innocence and latent threat. But it is his facial features that truly send chills down your spine. At first, his face resembles that of a ventriloquist dummy, completely black eyes and childish features. His nose, faithful to tradition, grows every time he lies, a constant reminder of his deceitful and predatory nature. His mouth, mimicking a ventriloquist's opening, can open into a grotesque circle, revealing multiple rows of razor-sharp teeth. As he devours human victims, his eyes become more organic, more realistic, a disturbing sign that the life he possesses is real, though tainted by violence. On his back, strings are visible, allowing him to move with superhuman speed and agility. Each time Pinocchio consumes human flesh, these strings transform into flexible and lethal tentacles, perfect for trapping, immobilizing, and devouring his victims effortlessly. His strength, size, and speed increase with every sacrifice, making him an almost unstoppable predator. The combination of his semi-organic anatomy with his essence as a living puppet makes this Pinocchio one of the most terrifying and memorable reinterpretations ever seen. As for his personality, Pinocchio is a master of deception and manipulation. He feigns innocence and vulnerability, cries inconsolably, and begs for affection, all to get close to his victims and devour them with ease. His nose betrays his lies and, with them, his predatory nature. But he is also savage and ruthless. He not only kills, but takes pleasure in prolonging the suffering of those he devours, displaying a sadism that goes beyond mere need for sustenance. His sole goal is clear: to complete his transformation into a real human being, no matter the cost. This terrifying version of Pinocchio has its roots in the mind of Meat Canyon, who in 2019 presented an early short film titled When You Wish Upon a Star. There, he already explored a dark parody of Disney's Pinocchio, showing Geppetto creating the puppet and a fairy granting it life. Even then, the creature repeated its unsettling question: "Do I look like a real boy?" Each lie made his nose grow, and when he expressed his desire to become flesh and bone, his arms stretched supernaturally to grab Geppetto, while his mouth revealed sharp teeth and gums of an organic appearance. The short ended with the clear implication that Geppetto had been devoured by his own creation. Over time, Meat Canyon perfected this idea. What began as a macabre parody evolved into its own complex and terrifying mythology. Improving his animation and storytelling techniques, he released a more polished short film in December 2022, consolidating this monstrous Pinocchio as one of the darkest, most disturbing, and memorable reinterpretations of the classic tale we all know, leaving an indelible mark on contemporary horror animation.